What happens when two invisible predators clash in the sky and only one returns? Bloodied and forever haunted. During the height of the Cold War, an elite class of U.S. Navy pilots flew in total secrecy, known only by call signs and never by name. In his radar intercept officer, Lieutenant Junior Grade Wayne Gator Robinson, climbed to 40,000 feet in their F-4 Phantom. The rules of engagement allowed him to fire only after being visually identified. But as he closed in, the MiG-21 suddenly turned rates, banking sharply away from the Phantom. Soviet gunships circled like sharks. Their guns pointed at him, ready to finish him off. He had to hide. Back at base, Reaper's hands were so badly frostbitten that they turned ghost white. He would never fly again. This mission, like many others, was classified. No one knew that Reaper and Gator had even been there. But that didn't mean the battles weren't real. In fact, it made them even more dangerous. Using the little training he had received, Reaper slipped beneath a frozen raft, sheltering from the wind and snow. Blood mixed with fuel as the enemy helicopters hovered overhead searching for him. How many brave men gave their lives in defense of a secret they could never tell? Comment below if you believe some of these Phantom pilots are still alive today, watching us from the shadows. 6 long hours he spent beneath that raft, praying for a miracle. And just as suddenly turning back, presenting what appeared to be a Soviet emblem on its fuselage, Reaper held his fire. It wasn't a real emblem. It was a clever trick played by the Soviets to identify friendly aircraft. One such drill in 1963 ended in tragedy. A pilot and his radar intercept officer were never seen again. Their jet vanished into the clouds and was never recovered. Only a single helmet washed ashore, its owner lost forever. These Top Gun pilots didn't win medals. They won silence. Their mission was a secret that the government couldn't afford to have leaked. So they were given no funerals, just a small ceremony at the base chapel and a burial at sea. But Gator had already pressed the big red button and launched an air-to-air missile. The next thing they knew, the skies lit up with a massive explosion. It was here, above the Arctic Circle, where Reaper made his move. His target, a pair of Soviet MiG-21s. Now, this is where things get tricky because according to official records, this battle never happened. There was no way for the Soviet military to know that they were being stalked by a ghost plane flown by a pilot who was also a ghost. This was a game of cat and mouse, but the mouse could smell the cat, and it was trying to stay out of the whiskers. These men weren't just flying machines, they were ghosts with wings. Tasked with intercepting Soviet MiGs without ever officially existing, their mission? Operation Powder Puff. Their job? Infiltrate Soviet airspace. Collect intelligence and strike if necessary. He pulled his stricken wingmen close, hoping for a miracle, but there was nothing he could do. The damage was catastrophic. Flames burst through the cockpit, and the stench of jet fuel filled the air. Reaper's instruments flickered and died one by one as the plane began to smoke. Gator screamed as the fire spread. And then the world went black. Reaper ejected at 40,000 feet, plummeting toward the frozen sea below. He watched in horror as Gator burned to death in the cockpit, his screams echoing in Reaper's ears long after he was gone. They were the specters of the sky, haunting the corridors of power in the dead zone between peace and war. On a freezing morning over the Barents Sea, Lieutenant Commander Jack Reaper Dalton as the Phantom approached. Reaper locked onto the lead MiG-21 with his Hughes and a GP-42 radar. The second MiG-21 banked away, but not before Reaper got a good look at the pilot. When Reaper's parachute finally opened, he was met with a scene straight out of hell. Finally, a U.S. submarine surfaced nearby and rescued him. These men trained with live ammunition, often colliding midair during blackout drills. But the question remains, how many pilots were shot down in missions that never happened?